Paranormal News. I'm Brad Bernards. Orange County, Florida just released a public advisory warning that the Department of Health had found signs of the rare brain-infecting virus, Eastern equine encephalitis virus, in the area. It is a particularly rare infection. It tends to spread in remote swampy areas far from human civilization. But when the disease does strike, it can be grave. Gizmodo reports that a bite from an infected mosquito can cause severe fatal brain swelling in a matter of days. Health Department officials found Eastern equine encephalitis in a flock of sentinel chickens, which local governments use to monitor and track infectious diseases, according to the warning, which included a list of steps people can take to prevent mosquito populations from growing.
The CDC says 7 cases in humans are reported every year in the United States. It can be deadly, and doctors say you should use a repellent outside and drain areas of standing water that may attract mosquitoes.
While Eastern equine encephalitis is rare and human infections that lead to dangerous symptoms are even rarer, scientists have yet to figure out a vaccine or even a treatment for the disease. Dentists in India pulled more than 500 teeth from the mouth of a young boy, according to the New Indian Express.
Doctors from Savith Dental College and Hospital in Chennai discovered what looked like a bag-like mass in the boy's mouth while operating to determine the cause of swelling in his jaw. The dental college says this is the first ever case to be documented worldwide.
Fortunately, the growth was caught early. All of the boy's other teeth are fine, according to his dentists, though the growth of his molars will be affected, requiring molar implants in his teens. According to the founder of Savitha Dental College, the surgery was performed free of charge. While the boy's parents immediately agreed to the operation, it took several hours to convince the 7-year-old to cooperate. The teeth were in different sizes. Even the smallest piece had a crown, root, and an enamel coating like a tooth. The college's head of maxillofacial pathology told the Times of India. Dentists are still looking for a cause for the boy's condition. Check out tonight's stories at parabnormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and I am your host, Joe Roop. Welcome to the program. It's Wednesday night, August the 14th, on into the 15th, and we are going to do our very first show tonight on crop circles. That's right. First show, we've done 360 so broadcasts, and we haven't done one single broadcast on crop circles. And tonight is the night that we are going to do it. And so here's the thing. I really appreciate you guys coming over to the Spreaker Live, stream, because our server is down. And Yeah, so we're broadcasting live over there. So anytime the server goes down, you can bet your bottom dollar if you go to Fringe FM on Spreaker, there will be over there. Just in case that ever happens again. Keep that in mind. And, yeah, it's been crazy, man. It's like one damn thing just keeps happening after another. And I don't know what's going on. It's been really weird. I got sick. And then, what was it? We kept having issues. I couldn't do John's show. The internet went out. And then the server locked up right when JD's show started, which was another thing that drove me absolutely bananas. And so it's just been one thing after the other. Hell, the air conditioner went out in here. And I can't explain it. I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you this, that I'm not the only one that it's happening to. There's other folks out there that are having issues as well. Whether it's, I don't know what it is, where people can't do shows. Maybe it's magic. Maybe it's a curse. Who knows? But this too shall pass. That is a guarantee. Before we get going, I want to say real quick that this show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. We did reschedule the webinar this coming Monday, the next Monday coming up. So after this week, that Monday is coming up. I don't know what date it is. I'll have to check that out. Also, Get the Tea is still giving away some stuff on the front page. I think they changed it. It used to be like 2 for 1, and then you got Heart Love with it, but they're giving away some colostrum now, or a super discount on it. It's pretty interesting what is going on over at GetTheTea.com, because ever since Ronnie put his Health Matters Now YouTube channel up, it's kind of been doing pretty good. So I don't know how much longer that we're going to be doing the webinars if his YouTube channel continues to grow, which is kind of sad because I have fun doing the webinars, and sometimes we give away stuff in there, or Ronnie does, but it's kind of one of those sentimental things to me, but that's okay. But continue to come and hang out with us, because you're always going to get a chance to win something or get an exclusive discount code. And we don't really just sit there and try to sell you stuff. We talk about all kinds of things that are going on, especially when it comes to your health. I mean, we're on the defense now. This stuff is perfect for your health, but it's like you got to take it now. And anybody that's taking a salt bath, like I've said before, and you watch the metals just come off your body, then you know what I'm talking about. So impurities, things like that, Get the Tea. And they've got the power pack is what it is right now. So you can get a bag of Get the Tea, a bottle of olive leaf for $50, and a colostrum complete organic chocolate. It used to be $114 and for $85. So go check it out at GetTheTea.com. Sign up for the webinar coming up. And also, this show is brought to you by Ancient Life Oil, the best CBD oil on the planet. Do I really have to tell you why you need to keep this stuff in your body? Look it up and then shop the million different CBD oils out there, and then come back and take my word for it. Get the Ferrari and get the one that's non-GMO, all the good stuff. And you got Ronnie McMullen, the one guy that I know that is actually caring about every single one of you when it comes to this stuff. And I'm not playing. I'm not just saying that because he's a partner here and my friend. It's just I don't know anybody else who is really out for your health for real and wants to do what's best for you and stays in the now. And also preparewiththefringe.com. Make sure that you go to preparewiththefringe.com so you don't get caught unawares. I want to thank everybody who has supported the show. I know I did get a message from someone about that saying, I'm sorry, I can't really support anymore because of my finances, and they went into this big thing about their budget. Don't worry about that stuff. Look, if you can't support the show anymore, that's totally fine. Just send us a review or share the show. Okay, one more thing. Make sure you head over to UFOseekers.com, backed and supported by the Fringe FM and Lighting the Void. And that is, if you want a journalistic approach to what's going on, give them a follow on social media at UFO Seekers. Also, their videos and investigations are the best on the planet and most well known at youtube.com/UFO Seekers. The website's UFOseekers.com. If you've had a sighting that you would like to report, give them a call at 661-UFO 661 UFO 7889. All right. So when we come back, I wanted to get that out of the way. We had a little bit of a late start because of the server. But when we come back, we're going to do our very first show about crop circles. And I got to tell you, I've studied it a little bit and looked into it. But I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert on this subject. But the man we're fixing to talk to that's coming up after the break, Gary King, he knows what's up. And he'll be on with us right after this. Stay with us.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Root, and you're listening to the Fringe FM.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to the Fringe FM.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
So, have you heard of heavy metals? I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. No, not cleansing the outside of your body, but cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Alex. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, The Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm, call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, my old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Light in the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM, and visit the website, thefringe.fm, to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on the Fringe FM.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
program, our very first show on crop circles tonight. This to me, the crop circles is one of the coolest mysteries on the planet. And we're going to go over as much as we can with our guests. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and bring him on all the way from the UK. Now, Gary began researching crop circles and UFO phenomena back in 1997, and he first came to the public's attention after having been one of the 3 witnesses to the appearance of the Eastfield crop formation on the 7th of July in 2007. And since then, he's lectured both nationally and internationally and featured in numerous TV productions about these areas. He's been working as a much sought after crop circle tour guide, and he carries a wealth of experience and knowledge that is both insightful and very intellectual. And I've actually got to listen to a couple of interviews with him already. Gary, I know it's early. Thank you so much for hanging out with us late nighters on Lighting the Void in the States. Can't wait to get into this subject matter.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, good evening to you. Good morning for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I really do appreciate you coming on. And I think that when I say that crop circles are one of the biggest mysteries to me, I say that because I absolutely have no idea, regardless of how many theories I've heard about them. I think there's definitely something real to it, but I have no idea what they are. I don't assume they're UFOs. I don't assume that they're spirits. I don't assume that they're hoaxers. So I'm just kind of curious as to when did you realize, hey, this is real? Like, what happened then?
Oh, wow. Well, I kind of realized that there was something to it upon entering my first ever crop circle, which was in July 1997. I'd had a bunch of different things happening to me in my life leading up to that point, particularly cosmic kind of coincidences that were leading me in all sorts of directions, which was really strange for me at that time. And when I walked into this first crop circle, I was actually taken there by an American guy from Iowa who was in the UK. And the moment I entered, really, and walked around inside it, I had this strange sense that this was something other. And I really wanted to know more and knew nothing apart from a few news articles that I'd seen where there'd been some very simple circles years before and people were claiming that UFOs had landed, and I just recalled sort of seeing them. I knew nothing about them. So I set about trying to find out as much as I could. And spent sort of 10 years really visiting in the summertime, walking in and out of them, talking to people, reading books, and it went from there really. So yeah, right from the beginning, I got this sense that this is something other, there's something else here. And I wasn't so much concerned about who was making them at first, But that became, an issue, because as soon as people started to say, this is just made by a bunch of guys with boards and all the rest of it, I needed to find out. And once I'd satisfied myself that wasn't the case, or at least it wasn't the case for the majority of them, then I really wanted to focus my attention on, okay, what do they mean? What is this community? If it's a communication, what is it trying to tell us? And so that's what I spent most of my time on.
Yeah, and it seems like when I look at all the different crop circles, I try to look for some type of recognizable pattern in every one of them. And, at first I'll say, okay, yeah, that's sacred geometry. Okay, maybe I know what that is. And then you'll just get this other wild one, right? And I don't know if I can't tell the difference. I'm just being honest with you. What's hoaxed and what's not. I'm sure you can, based on your investigations, like you probably know the difference. But to me, there's something about sacred geometry with this, right? For sure.
Well, yeah, when I lecture, I break it down so that I can show people that there are broadly 4 main categories of crop circles or designs. The first one is geometry. And sacred geometry, particularly sacred geometry, the reason it's called sacred geometry is because it reflects, it's something that's got proportions and ratios outside which are mirrored on the inside of us, our consciousness. And what I mean by that is, for example, excuse me, if you draw a triangle, any triangle, equilateral triangle, and you draw a circle around the outside of that triangle, touching all the 3 points, and then you draw a circle on the inside of that triangle, that circle on the inside will be exactly half the size of the circle on the outside. This is called Euclid's second theorem. The Greeks sort of figured this out quite some time ago. And a 2-to-1 ratio is a 2-to-1 ratio. You'll find that ratio used in lots of the construction of Gothic churches. But it's also connected to the way we perceive music. If you look at the top string of a guitar, the whole top string, the whole string on its own, if you pluck it, you'll hear an E note. And if you put your finger at the halfway point and pluck it, you'll hear an E note, which is an octave higher.
Right.
And music bypasses the intellect. So we perceive musical harmony. Pythagoras figured this out. We perceive musical harmony because of whole number ratios, simple whole number ratios, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 5-3, and so on. And so that's why geometry is called sacred geometry, certain kinds of geometry, because it's something that we are wired to recognize. So when we see a church window and you see a circular window that's 10 feet wide and the one above it's 5 feet wide contained within an arch, it looks beautiful to us, or it feels right to us intuitively because it's visual music. So our eyes and our ears are wired to recognize these whole number ratios. That's why it's called sacred geometry. So that's the first. Sacred geometry is the first kind of category that you could say crop circles are made, the designs cover. The second is religious and philosophical iconography. So we'll have the cross of Christ, or the Chinese yin-yang, or the Jewish menorah, or the wings of Horus. Pretty much most of the iconography that we've used as human beings for thousands of years to talk about divinity or talk about nature's dynamics like the yin-yang and so on. Pretty much every one of those that we've considered or used or created has been represented in the crop circles as if it's trying to point us to, you know, what we've thought about, remind us of all the things over the last few thousand years that we've thought about with regards to divinity or some kind of other. The third category is animals. So we've had lots of birds or insects, fish, spiders, dragonflies, lots of things to do with nature. That's the third category. And the fourth category is abstract, completely abstract. Can't determine any meaning from it whatsoever. It's just kind of crescents within crescents, or straight lines with little dots and crescents off of it. It's seemingly abstract. And so I order my mind with regards to the thinking or categorization of the crop circles along those four lines.
Wow. And are they evenly spread out, you think? Or is there one more prevalent than the other that tends to show up?
I haven't done the numbers. I would say that predominantly the geometry is the number one. I suppose that's why I picked it first, because a lot of what we've found, what really interests me, is the geometry, the sacred geometry that we find hidden within the design. It's not apparent on the face of it, but when you analyze the proportions and the geometry of what might be the design itself, we'll find that it contains pi and in an elaborate way, or it squares the circle. It does something called squaring the circle, which is a very deep, ancient geometrical philosophical pursuit. Many crop circles have hidden within them solutions to squaring the circle, which are so accurate. They're accurate to the thickness of a pencil line. And this has never been done in history before. So I'd say sacred geometry is probably the number one, yeah.
I think that's kind of why I was drawn to that side of it too, because I've got a sort of a Western occultist background where I can see that stuff, you know, and I've got family in Freemasonry, and I've just been around that kind of stuff all my life. And I, you know, if you take something like a star or a pentacle right? And in the middle, you see a pentagon, and then upside down's another star, and then it just keeps going and going and going. If you look inside, almost like it's a portal. Is that what you mean by when you were speaking earlier about how things are sacred? It's like a musical note up the scale, I guess, that could just keep going.
Well, consciousness, our mind, we say that our brain, some scientists, the world's divided into two halves of people saying, scientists or certain people saying that the brain produces consciousness. And then there's another half which says that consciousness is there and the brain kind of tunes into what is a bigger mind. And I suppose, having gone through all these experiences, I believe in the latter, because our recognition of number, and we think as human beings we invented number, but number is all around us, and there are certain numbers which are riddled throughout life, like particularly 5, 8, and 13. Which form part of, which are numbers which are connected with the Fibonacci sequence, something called the Fibonacci sequence. When you're born, you have 5 teeth in each quarter of your mouth, which fall out and are replaced by 8 teeth. 5 and 8 are 13. Most flowers have 5 petals. Musical scales, 13 notes, 5 black notes and 8 white notes. It goes on and on and on, and scientists have no idea why. But what's important about it is that we're just seemingly wired from birth to recognize harmony and disharmony based on the proportions of these numbers. I mean, think about it, a lot of people don't see that geometry is number in space and music is number in time. And astronomy, which was studied by the ancients obviously very deeply, is number in space and time. So a lot of the ancient studies were all centered around, in the pursuit of truth, were all centered around number. And the thing I mentioned to you earlier about Euclid's second theorem, with the triangle with the circle inside and outside, Plato called this an ever-truth. It's something that's always been true. It's true now, and it will always be true. And so it gives us as human beings an anchor to be able to say, well, that's true, and we can proceed from there. We know that that's solid. And if we're going to inquire into life and nature and what our role here is and so on, then this is at least somewhere we can start, which is solid ground.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Because, I mean, if you're looking for a philosophical or ultimate cosmic truths, I want to figure out why sacred geometry is there, but it is cool to know that it's a constant.
Yeah, it seems to be something to do with, it's there right from the beginning in our solar system, particularly. It's cosmic from us, from the point of view that we have a mind and eyes and senses that can look out into the sky and count these numbers and determine their patterns and ratios. For example, Venus is our, in between us and the sun. We know that the sun's the center of our solar system, and there's been loads of controversy around that because before we thought we were the center and everything. We looked out into the sky and watched all the planets revolving around us. But we don't live on the sun. We live here. And we've got eyes and the senses and the ability to scratch our heads and wonder. And when we look out towards the sun, the nearest planet to us is Venus. And I was mentioning 5, 8, and 13. Well, Venus, coincidentally, goes around in the sky and it draws a 5-fold pattern, like a 5-fold rosette, exactly like a pentagram.
Right.
Goes out behind the sun, comes back in, sort of kisses us and appears to go backwards in the sky, retrograde, goes back out behind the sun again and comes back in 5 times in 8 Earth years or 13 Venus years. So even our nearest planetary neighbour is massively beating out these same 3 numbers in time and space around us. And, some people are prepared to dismiss this as just a coincidence, but I'm not. It's the coincidences stack up and stack up and stack up, particularly with these numbers, and they're to do with creation. I have to think that there's some kind of intelligent design behind not only creating the universe, but us being a sort of part of it, which can also think about it, ask questions about it, and try and find truths about it. Yeah,
I'm totally with you on that. I'm glad you simplify it that way, because I've read some Pythagoras, not a lot of Manly P. Hall books and other books, and I have to go back and read it again, because the way he talks about number, it is kind of hard for me. But when you look at the shapes or the geometry, then it makes sense. It really starts to make sense. I really think that geometry either taps into maybe the right side of our brain, or maybe it helps synchronize something. That I think there's something there that is trying to get us to wake up. That they just want us to look at it. Look at this, right? What does this mean? That's how I feel. That's all I know I feel when I see that stuff.
It's because we're wired. It's just like if you hear, you don't have to be musically trained, but if somebody throws a bum note into a piece of music, we know. We can hear it. We can hear that it's discordant with the other notes.
Yeah.
It bypasses the intellect. We don't have to know that it's a C note that's conflicting with a G flat or whatever. We just know because it doesn't sound right. Well, if we look at a piece of geometry, we're looking at the same thing. We're looking at number in space instead of number in time. And if the geometry doesn't fit, if it's disproportionate or it's asymmetrical, we know. And so at that point, there's something profound and simple going on at the same time, which is that our consciousness is just exactly wired to recognize this thing. It can be easily dismissed as, that's just what it is. Or it can be taken for the profundity that it really is that, okay, what's going on outside of me when I'm looking at this piece of geometry, this objective piece of geometry I'm looking at, the reason it looks so beautiful, the reason it looks perfect and harmonic, is because the same thing is going on inside me in my consciousness that recognizes this thing. It fits.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing I can say, oh, well, that's there because that's what I get. I get that feeling of, I know this. Yeah. This is a principle. And I had this discussion with Richard Allen Miller one time, and he kind of gets all over the place, but in a genius kind of way. And I was like, if I look at even the book of Revelations, and that's, I'm not religious, but he's talking about the kingdom of heaven, and the four walls are that of a man and an angel. And so I'm drawing this out, and I'm like, okay, that's the Vitruvian, man. That's a pinnacle. And then he said, all the walls are the same, as equal as the sides. So I'm drawing that out. And next thing you know, I got a dodecahedron. I'm like, the kingdom of heaven's a dodecahedron. And I started getting this synchronistic deja vu type feeling. And I get that around sacred geometry a lot. So I think I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it speaks to, Jung said that there was 4 levels of our sort of intelligence as human beings, of thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. And sacred geometry, really, really ticks the box with the intuition. It wakes something up in us that says, this feels right. It brings in that aspect of intelligence, which is not just rational. It also is this very intuitive part of ourselves, which can be spookily bang on.
Yeah, for sure.
Explain. Yeah.
You nailed it with that, spookily bang on. That's the right way to say it, for sure. But what, in your opinion, because I'm sure everybody wants to know, in your opinion, because I'm not asking you for facts here unless you got them, are making these things? It's like we wake up and there's one. Well, what happened? Where did it come from?
Right. Sometimes we wake up and they're not just one that's appeared overnight. There's multiple. There's 7 or 8 or 9. So a lot of people don't appreciate that crop circles don't appear every now and again, one-offs. In the last 20 odd years that I've been doing this, bouncing around inside them, I'll wake up and there's been 5 overnight, and you can't even get round them in the hours of daylight to visit them all. And then the next night you wake up, there's another 3 the next morning. So they're not singularly isolated things. And that's one of the factors which tells me that it's not people. There's a bunch of reasons why it stacks up that it's not people doing them all. People can go out and make them, but when they do, they take an awful long time. They usually do it they pretty much always do it in daylight, not in the 4 or 5 hours of darkness that we have here in the UK during the British summertime.
And it's not as precise as the other ones, too, most of the time.
Yeah, that's it. You know, and it's easy to spot them pretty much because they use a board and rope and they crush the plants, and so you can walk inside and see the damage that they've caused by hacking around inside it. Whereas when you go into one that's crisp and fresh and it's all very buoyant, the crop inside, and there's no damage to it whatsoever, and there's no mud on the stalks, and as you've walked down the tractor lines to get to it, your feet weigh 10 pounds each because they're covered in clay, sticky mud. Mm-hmm. And then you get inside this thing and there's absolutely no mud. Then you realise that, you know, if they're created by people who claim that they've walked around them with boards, then they've got the ability to float because they've not left any mud or residue on the crops, and they've not broken it as well. So I've asked them repeatedly to show us, you know, when they do their demonstrations, to show us how they do these effects without creating any damage. And obviously they've never been able to satisfy my requests. But going more directly towards your question about who makes them, lots of theories, of course, but no actual proof of anything. I like to hover. If I have humans on one end and aliens or something else on the other end, then I like to hover somewhere in the middle and not be certain,
right,
without direct evidence, because I think certainty is one of the reasons that we all go to war with each other. If you're not certain about something, you don't have the reasons to fight other people. And it's not staying on the fence, it's just the fact that I don't have any tangible direct evidence.
I'm glad you say that, because that's why I called the show Lighting the Void, because there's just some questions that seem like might possibly never get answered, no matter what science does. And
yeah. I made a documentary with a Norwegian television back in 2008 or 9 or something around there, and they titled the show "Embrace the Mystery," and I liked it because I think that's what us human beings have got to actually learn to do again, is say that, you know, there's a mystery here and we're not scared of it. We don't just like want to control it and put it into a box and own it. It's a mystery and that's one of the things that's happened with the crop circles over the years, is that people have come along with all sorts of predictions and ideas about what it is. And as soon as they've made them, something's happened to dispute their claim. So it's almost like there's a humorous prankster that says, "Oh, you think that, do you? Okay, well, what about this?" And you go, "Oh, damn." And then right, people sort of fiddle away into the background. But if you're happy with mystery, if you're happy to live alongside it and just embrace it, it's really good for you, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I do find myself not happy with I want to know the answer so bad, because I think, you know, it's like once we really see this thing, we'll see it and we'll know, right? But then if you really think about it, let's just say an alien being came down and formed the crop circles in front of everybody. If you really think about it, I almost guarantee you there would be masses of people saying, well, that was the government, or that was a hoax, or that was they would come up with something that would negate the whole thing.
Yeah. I've become absolutely convinced of that. That's why I'm not a Manic Street preacher in the terms of like running around the world trying to tell people, look, you need to believe in these crop circles because they're going to save the world and they're going to end all wars and they're going to do all this sort of stuff. They haven't in the last 20 odd years that I've been doing it. You know, the world's got worse in my view in terms of the environment and politics and wars and so a few pretty patterns in the fields in an obscure place in the fields of Wiltshire haven't saved the planet yet. And I'm totally with you, Joe, that if we had video of the aliens or whatever it is coming down and, you know, doing it, someone would say that's video graphics, you know, someone's just tricked that and and so proving what it is, proving that it's something other, I'm convinced now is not the reason that these things are here.
And sounds to me like it's not even worth your time anymore to try to prove somebody that it's real. You just kind of know now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to Brazil next week. I've been going to Brazil quite a bit lately because they've been having crop circles out there and they're very keen to find out more. And the presentation I give spends the first sort of 15 or 20 minutes showing why I think they're not man-made, why I'm convinced they're not man-made. And I show videos of people making them. I show the effects of what happens on the ground when they do it and how long it takes them and the fact that they always do it in the daylight. And then I show them, for example, the 777 crop circle that appeared in front of me that's ginormous in comparison to the little things that these people create after 24 hours or a week even sometimes they take. And this thing appeared in under 300 minutes. And then show the pictures on the ground of many, many crop circles that I've visited that haven't got any damage. And once I've dealt with that, once I've shown people and say, look, I don't know what it is, but that's that, and let's put that to one side. And then I dive into the geometry and the meaning stuff that I've researched. People love it because I'm not trying to say you need to believe my theory of, it's people from the Pleiades who are coming to save us or whatever.
Right.
I've not got any. Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, look, we're going to go into our break. You guys want to ask any questions? There's 2 chat rooms actually tonight, one on Spreaker, one on Discord. You can also call in at 1-800-588-0335. We're with Gary King tonight. First show on crop circles ever. We'll be right back.
Listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
And now we can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
This is Al. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening. Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves strip bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand 3 truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25 years shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in 1 business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, the Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm. Call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Occult Arcana is a balanced and objective guide to those subjects considered a part of the nature of light and darkness. Addressed in this text is a compilation of material that will provide new perspectives and awaken latent abilities that we all possess. The content herein shall provide magical sustenance for adept and novice alike, and will help strengthen the cornerstone of mystic understanding and alchemical transmutation. If you are interested in this modern grimoire, you can find detailed information and ways to order by visiting www.thesecretteachings.info. Although esoteric and occult studies remain vast, they are rooted within a universal philosophy that is difficult, if not impossible by finite terms, to explain in words. Language places restriction and erects barriers to understandings. By this it is to be understood that there are some things man should consider far too sacred to profane with definition. For these concepts and the manner by which we live our lives, we shall take a note from the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. Quote, "Silence is better than unmeaning words." End quote. To get your autographed copy of Occult Arcana today, simply visit www.thesecretteachings.info or email The Secret Teachings at rdgable@yahoo.com.
Circles is what we're talking about tonight with one and only Gary King, and we just got through talking about things like proof, those big questions everybody wants to know, like what are they, who's doing it, what's the difference between the good stuff and the hoaxers. And I think I used to sit back up, and I forget the name of the show, and I'm sure you heard it before, Gary. The Art Bell did one that was like 7 hours long. There's just these guys going back and forth, and it was, there's always the one critic, the guy that just doesn't believe in it. And, that was what we just talked about, there's so things that happen in our lives where we just say, you know what? I'm done trying to convince the world or prove this scientifically. What I'll do is, and what I think is cool about what you're doing, is you're showing all of these different, I wouldn't even call them coincidences, facts that make people scratch their head and go, okay, yeah, there's something definitely real about it. And maybe we should do that with all mysteries instead of just trying to prove everything with paper or get all upset about it.
Yeah, we get very polarized, don't we? Very easy. And I think that, that's one of the things that the crop circles they do. They reveal us to ourselves. They show us how we react to things, and pretty quickly we become polarized, and then think that our mission in life is to convince the other side of our position and go to war with each other. And we do this on every subject, it seems, and it doesn't do us any favors. So I've adopted the position more through the fact that I think that that's part of the dialogue. Actually, is that the crop circle's actual dialogue is about us. It shows us ourselves. It shows us ourselves very personally. I've learned a great deal about myself from investigating these things vicariously, and it showed me a lot about the nature of how we all behave and respond. And that's what seems to have happened with the crop circles over the years that they've been coming down, is that it polarizes people, and then the media jump all over it, and they love a polarized position, right? They'll always bring in the opposite guy who says, no, it's not this, it's not that. And no matter how ridiculous their position is, and then it sets everybody off and fires everybody up to start fighting with each other. I don't think that's what it's really about. I think there's a glimmer in the crop circles that gives us a way of being able to go, do you know what? We don't need to do this to each other. We can treat each other a bit more nicely and realise there's a mystery here and go about, having fun exploring it.
Speaking of having fun and exploring it, what kinds of things have happened to you out while investigating this? I mean, have you had some real transcendental experiences? Have you had any type of energetic, tosses that have happened? Anything?
Yeah. And it's funny that, what's happened to me is that you kind of I've done a lot of martial arts, and one of the things about, Qigong practice and martial arts practice is about grounding yourself. And I think it's helped me a great deal in kind of having had some really cosmic experiences, and then not be able to kind of let my consciousness fly away, and being able to ground it and normalize it, so that now people show me videos or they explain certain things that have happened to them, and I just go, oh, okay, that's fine, yeah. It's not the normal, the paranormal in a sense has become more normalized to me, and so it's difficult to pick them out amongst the 23 years. But let's take 777 for example. That day, the day before, I was at university. I'd gone back to university at the time. I was at university in Cardiff, and I spent the summer break. I took a trailer down to Wiltshire, parked it up and thought, right, I'm going to bounce around the crop circles every day, do my thing. Mm-hmm. And the day before, the 6th of July, I went along to a kind of cafe where people congregated, a crop circle cafe, and coincidentally, every day before that, I'd been putting on a video that had been made by another Norwegian called Terry Toffness, called Crossovers from Another Dimension. It was a really good production that, again, didn't say that they had the answers, but just laid out different various ideas and theories. And I liked it. And so every day I'd go in, I knew the owner of the cafe, and I'd throw this DVD on the player, and, it'd be playing every day. And then this particular day, the 6th, instead of putting that one on, for some reason I put this other DVD on that was made by a Dutch researcher called Janet Ossebaard and Bert Janssen, about balls of light that had been filmed around the area of Wiltshire. I had no idea why I put it on. It's just one of those random things. Just, I'll put this one on today. And this had followed like several weeks of putting the other one on. So I put this DVD on and, got some breakfast, started having conversations with people and so on. And later on during the day, this guy walked past me in kind of a rush. There was something drew me to him. He was sort of anxious in a way. And I stopped him and I said, what's happening? And he said, I've got to go and get some money and buy this DVD. And I said, what's the deal? What's happening? And he said, 20 years ago, he said, I've been coming here for 20 years. And he said, I'm a UFO researcher, and I've been filming the fields around here, And he said, 20 years ago, I think it was maybe less than 20 years at the time it was like 10 years ago, 10 or 11. He said 1996, I think it was. He'd come to the area, had a basic camcorder, and he'd witnessed a ball of light go out across the field, open up and expand to about 20 feet. He said he could hear the crop rustling underneath the ball of light. It collapsed back into a ball and flew off very fast across the Vale of Pusey. He said by the time I actually fired up my camcorder and got it aimed at the thing, it was gone. It was over in the time that it took. And he said, nobody else was there. He said, I've been telling people for ages that this happened. Nobody believed me, even though there was a circle there in the morning, a small 20-foot circle. And he said, in this video, this DVD that you've put on, it shows that there's somebody else that was there that night, because they're actually talking about it. And it confirms what happened to me. So I've got to go and buy it. So I'm like, well, wow, that's a good story. And off he went. Well, then later that night, when Paula and I decided to go up and do this night watch, I'd never met this guy before, and I knew his name because we sort of introduced ourselves. When we walked up onto this hill about 1 o'clock in the morning, it was absolutely pitch dark. There he was with all his cameras set up. I had no idea that he was going to be there. And he was back again for his sort of, annual visit to try and film UFOs or balls of light in the area. And he'd decided to go to that particular location that night because he said he'd been scouting locations that day. And his dog got very excited when it got to that area. So he said that was the thing that made me think, okay, this is the place. And so we marched up on the hill, and there he was with all these cameras set up and recording to video. And I asked him questions about them. I said, "Well, God, you got some equipment here? What's all this?" And he scanned across the field with this image intensifying camera and so on. And then we sat down, and he was a very gregarious guy like myself. And he was actually a bit of a scientist. He was the guy that invented the chip and pin system for our credit cards, and he'd worked for Rolls-Royce and designed aircraft engines and knew quite a lot about physics and astrophysics. So I was coming at it from this kind of metaphysical sort of martial arts, chi sort of direction. And we had this really cosmic conversation in that rather than two people that were coming from opposite sides of the spectrum that were fighting with each other, we were both looking for mutual ways of being able to find the right terminology to see where each other was coming from so that we could move the conversation forward. And I have to say, up till now in my life, it's probably one of the most cosmic conversations I've ever had with someone that you would probably see as an adversary, because we were able to not fight with each other and explore great areas. And the energy built as a result of that over the evening until there was this enormous white flash of light, which was wow. Weirdly secondary to the conversation. We were so engrossed in our conversation. When the light happened, we talked about it momentarily. So, what was that? That was strange because there'd been no other lightning, or it wasn't stormy, although it was overcast. And I think I made a comment about, if there's a crop circle down in that field, I bet this is when it happened, laughing. And then we carried on talking for another 20 minutes or so, and then he decided to look down. I felt something. I felt a presence in the field, even though it's absolutely pitch black and dark. You couldn't see anything down in the field below us. I just said, there's something down there. So he said, let me have a look. So he jumped up and opened the camera. And there it was, 1,000-foot crop circle, which consisted of 150 individual circles, some of them 160 foot wide, some of them much smaller. Looked like a kind of monster or a dragon, an abstract sort of dragon or something that rolled along the landscape. And we had to wait another 20 minutes or so because we could see it through the camera lens, but we couldn't see it with our eyes. We had to wait another 20 minutes or so for the light to start coming up so that we could begin to see it. And then Paul and I drove down and walked inside. And when we went inside, every step we took was like static electricity. It just crackled. It was like all the electrons had been knocked out of their orbit and jumped back in with every footstep that we made. And it gave us an enormous high and also gave us a headache for about a week. And we kept getting invited back to the crop circle to do various media interviews. And we said, look, to be honest, we don't want to go back in there because we've got an enormous headache and it won't go away. And so, we've been back, sort of in the perimeter for a couple of times, and it seems to get worse. So we're staying away from it for a bit. Anyway, about a week later, eventually somebody talked us into going back to do an interview, and we walked back in it. And the moment we stepped back in it, our headache disappeared.
That's insane. That is incredible, man.
Can't explain it.
Well, if you just told that story, like this is what happened, middle, beginning, end, real quick, people would be like, well, you had a good conversation and you saw a flash of light. No, I mean, what you're telling me is you had a conversation with somebody that would normally turn out into just a fist argument, that doesn't agree on nothing. And some type of synchronization started happening between you two as you kept discussing, almost like maybe the left and right brain or two polarizations are starting to find some type of agreement. And then you spoke it and saying, well, if there's going to be a crop circle, this is the time it would happen. Saw a flash of light, and you go down there and there's an entire thing laid out for you. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it just felt like all the pieces were being put in place by, meeting him that day and me coincidentally putting this DVD on that sparked up and confirmed, because it was the same field that 11 years or whatever it was, 15 years, I can't remember the exact date of when it was that he'd been there and filmed this other ball of light years before but had no witnesses. And so that coincidence fell into place that I just randomly put this DVD on, and having not put that DVD on, put the same one on every day for weeks before that. And then that sparked me having a conversation with him and us being introduced. And then later on we met up coincidentally again. He'd felt that this was the place to go because of his dog. And so the feeling afterwards, eerily, was that we were like pieces on a chessboard that had just been moved around and put into place. And then the energy of us having this great conversation, friendly conversation, mutual conversation, even though that we were on opposite poles of the spectrum, seemed to, in some way, I want to say, contribute to the fact that the crop circle materialised. It was a constituent part of it that we weren't up on the hill fighting with each other, because people who've had various experiences around this area, particularly with balls of light, have all reported that there's a deep sense of love, there's a deep sense of non-violence, a deep sense of something that's above us humans from where we currently are. It's like we could be that way. We could rise above the situations, the polarizations that we're in now, but various forces keep us where we are.
Was there something in the shape that kind of corresponded to your conversation at all, or? Well,
it looks like the if you look at it from the vertical position, it looks like the Hindu Om symbol,
right?
Which is peace, isn't it? Shanti. It's the universal state of creation.
Well, that corresponds with everything then. That's like energy coming together at like everything. I think that's a lot of, we've talked about a lot of different cosmic principles on here. Magicians, out-of-body experience people, paranormal. That comes up, this union of opposites, and I say opposites in every way, to where that causes certain things to happen. Not only manifestation, but synchronicities too. And it's almost like you're being rewarded because you've recognized it or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's that's where, because you read books on chi and stuff, and the yin yang symbol, which has been depicted in the crop circles, as I mentioned earlier. You just watch these publications just list off light and dark, up and down, left and right, and blah blah blah. There's some more sophisticated ones which talk about the middle ground between that, which is sort of heart and. How we are how we fit in the middle, and that's where this square and the circle come from. The square and the circle are complete opposites, but the solution to the squaring of the circle that the crop circles have revealed are all facilitated by the pentagram, which is us, which is, as you said, the Vitruvian man, which is us placed in the middle as the balancing point between two opposites. And so that, to me, tells me that it's our role to balance heaven and earth. It's our role to find the mediating point between these two seemingly opposite polarities.
Yeah. What's funny about what you just said is one of the considered the evilest men in the world, and I don't want to take this down that road, but I'm just saying it's funny you say that. That was his whole teaching. Aleister Crowley, right? Evilest man in the world, right? But the whole idea of Thelema was that, your divine will, love, and the union of opposites. I'm not saying they didn't do crazy things, but I think we're in a birthing process. That's why I bring that up. Like when we learn something, okay, I think we've learned this fundamental principle. And then it's almost like we make entire mystery schools and protocols and all this stuff over a simple shape, if that makes any sense.
This is why I love the crop circles, because a friend of mine, Karen Alexander, she coined the phrase temporary temples. And I love that because, and I've said this many times, that the crop circles are like these mandalas that the Buddhists create out of sand. And as soon as they've spent weeks creating them very meticulously, they rub their hand through them and wipe them out to demonstrate impermanence, which is about us getting attached to these icons and then treating them more sacred than actual human beings. We'll kill people for going anywhere near the mandala, cordon it off and saying this is a sacred place. And then, that's in my view, it's the wrong idea. Us humans are more sacred than the actual objective thing itself. It's just a pattern, right, that shows us something. And so I love the fact that the crop circles appear in a medium that at the end of each season it gets cut out.
Yeah. Another thing too that happens is, I had a guy that came on the show that would never, he was, and I can't say his name because I'm sure it'd make him upset, but he said, look, I'll never speculate. I'll only tell you what my real research is. I've had several guys on the show like that, but during the break, he told me about an instance that he had in the desert. Like I went out to the desert, I was doing an investigation, and I got in this meditative state, and he looked at a figure or a monument, and it just he said that almost like a divine mandala came out, and it almost showed him like a figure of Isis. And this guy would never say this stuff, man, not out in public, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? I've talked to these other people that go on the shamanic journeys and they're doing DMT and they're kind of forcing the experience, and they talk about the same thing, the same things that come through.
There's a lot of universal things in there, and that's what's interesting when you gather the data. Is the it's like John Mack, isn't it? Professor John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist. He investigated all these people that have been abducted and so on, and the interesting patterns that he found was that the people initially went off and tried to tell all their friends and family, and their friends and family said, what drugs are you on that night, and so on. Usual responses, which demonstrates how we all respond to each other when we try and tell people about something weird's happened to us. And then as their life progressed and they sort of moved forward, you notice they go through these stages of self-discovery, putting them on what we call a spiritual journey, where they start getting concerned about the environment, they start getting interested in environmental studies, then philosophy, and pick one route or another to try and help themselves find out more about themselves and the world. And so it's interesting that a lot of paranormal experiences, be it UFOs, be it shamanic experiences across the board, end up having the same pattern of after effects on people, where they get more interested about the world and themselves.
Yeah, and that story that you said when you were having that discussion and all that happens to so many people, and sometimes they discount it, right? But I've got friends that are not into this stuff at all, but they'll call me, like an old high school friend. He's had too many beers that night, and he's like, well, I'll call Joe and tell him about this experience. And they just open up, right? They tell me about all this stuff that happened. I swear, man, I know you don't believe me. And I'm like, who are you talking to here? And why did you wait so long to tell me, right?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's that, when people have paranormal or strange experiences, I had this for a while, right? People would have them, friends of mine, and they go, oh, God, who can I say? Oh, I'll ring Gary, right? Because he'll understand, because he's out there with the crop circles and all the rest of it. And so they want to, and the people who don't talk about it, when they get into a group where there's people who start discussing that they've had experiences, they feel safe, right? And then almost like dissidents, they start to go, oh, well, actually, years ago I saw a UFO, or I did this, or I did that. And they've kept it quiet for years, because we know that as soon as you bring it up in this culture, that you're going to be ridiculed. And nobody wants that. And so it tells us something about the culture. Why is there this invisible wall that says, look, don't mention that, otherwise you're going to be, you're going to be branded a lunatic and you're going to be an outcast and da-da-da. Who did that? Who set that up?
I have no idea, but you're so right about that. Yeah. And I think things are coming. I think it's getting bigger. Like there's more of an awareness to these types of things. But still I still have not watched a newscast about, even when they're talking about Tom DeLonge and all this other stuff, they still kind of smile a little bit, but and we got to take a break here, but I've got some specific questions from the audience as well. We're here with Gary King. You guys were talking about crop circles. We're going to continue the discussion when we come back right after this.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on the Fringe FM. From the city of Chicago in the great Midwest, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. A deadly drug-resistant fungus could be the first infection spread by climate change. U.S. health officials warned hundreds of thousands of clinicians in hospitals around the country to be on the lookout for a new, quickly spreading and highly drug-resistant type of yeast that was causing potential fatal infections in hospitalized patients around the world. Candida auris has become a serious global health threat since it was identified a decade ago, especially for patients with a compromised immune system. It has been reported in more than 30 countries and is probably more widespread than that because the organism is hard to identify without specialized laboratory methods. Researchers have never been able to isolate the fungus from the natural environment or figure out how genetically distinct versions emerged independently at roughly the same time in India, South Africa, and South America. Now, researchers in the United States and Netherlands have a new theory. They propose that global warming may have played a key role and suggest that this may be the first example of a new fungal disease emerging from climate change, according to a study published Tuesday in MBio, a journal of the American Society of Microbiology. Source ScienceAlert.com. And scientists have created a prosthetic arm that lets patients feel and touch again. Perhaps one of the most profound yet underappreciated aspects of being alive is the ability to reach out with your hand and feel the world around you. For people who have lost a hand or arm, prosthetics may restore some of the functioning, but not the sense of touch itself. But scientists at the University of Utah say they've created technology that can return some degree of feeling for people with amputations. Source Gizmodo.com. And yet another mystery boom is heard and felt across 4 western Illinois counties, and it still remains unsolved. Emergency and law enforcement agencies in Greene, Morgan, Scott, and Pike counties received numerous reports of a loud explosion-like sound that shook the ground and buildings around 1 p.m. last Thursday. Some who felt it quickly took to social media looking for clues. Although there were a few erroneous reports of explosions, most people were left scratching their heads. Greene County Sheriff Deputy Cale Hoseman said there were reports about the sound, but no source that could be verified. Source BendedReality.com. And time for this edition's Fun Fact. If you add up the numbers on a roulette wheel, you come up with 666. And that wraps it up for this edition of the Stranger Than Fiction News, right here on the Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
Right, me old Chinas. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Lighting the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
Hey, if you want to leave us a shout out, you can always go to lightingthevoid.com and hit that speak pipe button and we can make you a fancy little promo. Yeah, I know you heard Lady Ann's new one, and all you got to do, you can even call it on your phone. You just hit that button, it'll take you to a little thing. It says hits record, and you can tell us how much you love us or hate us, and I'll make some type of funny, productive glyph out of it. And you'll get to hear your voice on the air. Just letting you know about that. And we got other new stuff coming to the website too as well. But tonight we're here with Gary King. We're discussing crop circles here live on the Fringe FM. And it's been a fascinating conversation so far. And I'm so glad that I'm really happy now it was you, the first person I get to talk to about this, because you seem to understand where I'm coming from on this. Like, I'm coming from that deep understanding of like, hey, there's something here. There's some big answers to some big questions here, and we've got to keep looking at this stuff. We have to, we can't just, and that's the thing. Like, when it comes to ufology, I've noticed that it's been all about, to the stars, Tom DeLonge, the military, and whatever evangelist is trying to sell whatever, but crop circles have you don't hear about them much anymore, and it used to be all the rage.
Yeah, it's funny that the crop circles have brought together all the things that, UFOs, mysterious coincidences, experiences, Mayan prophecies. You list them off, right? And the crop circles have covered them. It's the one phenomenon that's brought all of the different things into the package, right? So everything we've ever, talked about, considered, whether it's, as I said, religious and philosophical iconography, it all comes back. The crop circles have covered it, and people have come to the crop circles and tried to use their version, whether it's Mayan prophecies or astrological prophecies or various other things. They've come. It's all been packaged together inside this crop circle phenomenon that's been going on for the last sort of 40 years over here and around the world, of course.
Do you think that's because, like you were mentioning earlier, it's okay to live inside the mystery, that we get to that point as a community where we just don't know and we stop looking at it? We'd rather have somebody tell us what the facts are, or instead of just say, hey, there's a real mystery here.
Yeah, I think that when you just said we'd rather have somebody tell us, right? I mean, that's one of the things that there's a number of things that test my patience with regards to dealing with this subject sometimes and people. And one of them is the fact that people just come along and go, what is it then? And expect to, after 23 years of all the different experiences and research that I've done, that I can give them a one sentence answer. And then they can go, oh, thanks very much. But really what they're trying to do is half the time is more than half the time is to try and pick holes in what you say, because there's never going to be a definitive answer, and anybody can always pick a hole in it, and then you're back to that fighting again. So it gets frustrating that people are lazy in that they don't do their own work. Whereas I've dedicated so much time and so much of my life to trying to find answers, and still continue to do so. And people think that they can, just listen to someone, over dinner and say, well, okay, and so what do you think then? What do you believe? Or you get these kinds of questions, and you go, all right, I'll just give you the answers, is it? And you think that that's, going to wrap it all up, or it doesn't work like that. I think part of the process is the co-participation, is the diving into it for yourself and trying to find answers for yourself.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm doing now, actually. Yeah. But so I'm looking at some of these questions in the chat. Some of these crop circles that don't have sacred geometry, and they look almost like an 8-bit computer program. I don't know the names of all the circles. I'm just going to be honest with you, but some of them look like computer gibberish. You know what I mean? Almost. What's that about?
Well, there have been some that have been laid out in like a form of binary code with dots and dashes, and when we've converted those dots and dashes, it's actually it's got an alphabetic message. There's been a couple like that. There was one, the famous alien face and the disc, which was I think in 2001. Huge alien face with a kind of CD disc to the left of it, and the CD disc had all these dots and dashes, and a guy called Paul Weigel recognized that this was what it was, and he converted it to, it was a binary code, he converted it to ASCII, and out came the alphabet, and there was this message. It's known as the face and the message, this crop circle. There's a message that said, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. I can't remember. There might be another sentence, and it said conduit closing. So that converted straight into, the English alphabet and spelled out this message. There was another one in 2009, which was a kind of wheel with these various dots and dashes on it, on like spokes that radiated out, radial spokes that went out to the circumference. And when that was converted, it spelled out an equation, a very famous equation by a mathematician called Euler, or Euler's equation, some people call it, which is EI pi equals 1 plus 0. It's the only equation. It's described as the most beautiful mathematical equation ever devised because it harmonizes geometry, algebra, calculus, numeracy. It brings all 5 disciplines of the way we consider number or work with numbers. It brought them all together and produced this beautiful equation. Now, the interesting thing about that is the I, EI. I is the square root of -1. It's an imaginary number. -1 doesn't exist, right? So this imaginary number holds up the equation. And interestingly, without this imaginary number, without this equation, we wouldn't be able to fly anywhere in aircrafts because air traffic control relies on this equation to plot where the planes are in real time in the sky, by reference to an imaginary number. Now, when you start to consider this imaginary number and our imagination, and the fact that Sufis and a lot of older philosophical places talk about this, the difference between me imagining in my mind right now the school I used to go to, just conjuring up an imagination, a phantasm in my mind, and there being an imaginary realm that is real, that really exists, like heaven. And so the more we looked at this particular, there's this crop circle, it had dots and dashes. It got us to figure it out, right? It didn't give us the answers, which I think is important. Like I've said to you earlier about the geometric solutions being hidden within it. They want us to work to find something rather than just give us the answers. And then when we do find it, it sparks off all of this kind of introspective philosophical thought about imaginary realms and imaginary numbers. And you look back through history and think, oh God, lots of people have been toying with this idea for years. And there it is, raised in a crop circle in a field of rape, canola, as you guys call it, by giving out a binary code. So,
you know, it makes me feel like I'm in class almost. When you say that like that way,
yeah.
I specifically feel like I'm in class where, of course, a geometry teacher could teach you about symmetric and congruent angles, and this is what they look like. But when they put up a formula and you go to it, then you start seeing it in everything because they've turned on a different thing in your brain.
Yeah, and that's what the crop circles did. See, the squaring of the circle thing that I've mentioned several times. That so my friend, I work very closely. My best friend in the crop circle is an architect called Michael Glickman, Professor Michael Glickman. He was an professor of architecture at the University of Southern California. He's an English guy. He lived in California for a while. In 1997, he's been researching the crop circle since 91. In 97. There were these one of the most prevalent crop circles is something we call a quintuplet, which is like a dice 5-spot. It's got a circle in the center and it's got 4 spots on the outside. And there's been all sorts of shapes and sizes, various iterations of that have bigger circles in the middle and smaller ones on the outside, and rings through them and so on. Well, they've been going on right pretty much from the beginning, right? And then in 1997, he realized that there was one particular of these quintuplets where the mother circle, the circle in the center, infringed into the daughter circles, the 4 circles on the outside, kind of moved into them. And so he thought, okay, if I put a dot, if I draw a line between the center points of these daughter circles on the outside to square it, and then measure that square against the circle that's underneath the mother circle, let's see what I get. And what he found was that it squared the circle very, very accurately to the thickness of a pencil line, which had never been done in history before. We've consulted maths historians who are able to tell us, this is as close as Plato got or someone else got or whatever. And so right all there, we've found in 5 little dots in a field of wheat, we've got a solution to an ancient geometrical puzzle that's never been so accurately done before. So then a guy called Alan Brown goes, well, hang on, let's have a look at all the other quintuplets that we've been getting for the past 25 years or whatever. And he goes back systematically over hundreds of them and finds that all of them have been actively squaring the circle right under our noses without us realizing. And so the teacher, as you quite rightly, I think, put it, Joe, had been giving us a lesson for years, waiting for us to twig, right? Because they knew that once we twigged it, we're ready for the next lesson. And so then we still get squared circles. We had a new solution this year. 3 simple circles, 3 simple dots actually gave us a new way of squaring the circle this year again, which most people just, as soon as it came down, people, it's a simple circle with 3 circles in it. It's just man-made, obviously, and they move on. But then, Michael, my friend, looks at it and calls me up and says, there's a new way of squaring the circle. And it can't be disputed because there it is. You do the measurements, you do the thing, and you go, wow, that's...
And that is ancient, too, especially in in all the Western mystery schools. That's the one big thing that they...
It's one big thing. I was a Freemason. You mentioned Freemasonry. I was a Freemason for 9 years, right? The square and the circle, right? It's one of the questions. I think when you go to 2nd degree, they say to you, what is the square? And you answer the angle of 90 degrees or the 4th part of a circle. And I used to think, what does that mean?
Yeah, why am I saying... That's exactly what I said, too. Like, why am I saying this? Well, it's almost like they're doing the same thing the crop circles are doing. They're activating things.
They're activating stuff. Yeah.
What do you think about that, though? Like, just real quick, I know it's kind of off subject, but a lot of people say with those types of things, well, you're being brainwashed. Well, how in the hell can I be being brainwashed when I can start seeing things you can't?
What, you mean the Freemasonry?
Yeah, or any type of society like that. I've never understood where people think they're being brainwashed when they're becoming more aware of fundamental truths, so to speak.
Yeah. In some parts, people can be right if you're being brainwashed. If you're into a cult and you're just saying, look, I've got the answers and you've got to listen to me and anybody else is stupid, then I would particularly say, you're probably brainwashed, right? Whether that's by a politician who's telling you that he's got all the answers or whether it's a guru. But if you speak to somebody who says, well, I'm not really sure and it could be this and it might be that and we've got some ideas over there and we've got a little bit of facts over there, I don't find how you can be brainwashed into uncertainty.
Man, I might use that for an audio bit on a promo, actually, for about people that talk, because I get that question all the time, because I talk about some of the temples and secret societies I've been in. Well, how do you know once you get to this degree that you're not going to be worshiping Almighty Lucifer? And I'm thinking, man.
Well, that could be true, but you don't know till you go through the door, do you?
Yes, that's what I tell them. I don't know, but all I can tell you is that it's changed my life. No doubt about it.
I mean, for me, it was a bunch of guys who met up 6 or 7 times a year. We walked around and did all these rituals that we didn't really understand what they meant. Then we all got drunk afterwards having a meal and did business deals, or said, if you want to get your garden fixed, Johnny over there is the man to talk to. And that was really why people were in it. I didn't get to ascend to any higher esoteric levels, but the bits I did get, I got to senior warden. And the bits I did get, and I remember the terminology about the symbology of the gavel and the square and the circle, the compasses is the square and the circle, right? They've been talking about this stuff for a very long time.
Right.
Well, that stuff was interesting to me, particularly when I came into the crop circles and then looked back over it. Actually, the crop circles have made more sense of what I was doing when I was a Freemason than the Freemasons ever did.
Yeah, and man, that's funny that you bring that up. So when I learned about that too, like the first, they said, "Okay, what's this? This is the ruler or whatever, Yeah. And I said, "Okay,
the 24-inch gauge, right? It represents the 24 hours of the day."
8 hours for refreshment, 8 hours to for
prayer to Almighty God, the other 8 hours to help a friend or brother in need, that not being detrimental to ourselves. I remember this stuff. You had to learn it.
But when I started looking at it, I was like, okay, so all these tools represent this thing. But what if I use this principle for everything in my life, right?
Yeah.
And so I used that, let's say, for energy. If you want to be at your ultimate energetic person, this is how you divide this up. And your energy is going to be at its full. And I started looking at things like energy and consciousness. And when you really look at all these different teachings, it's almost like they're teaching you how to be at peak energy and peak awareness all the time.
Yeah, I think they had a fair idea, didn't they? And there's the numbers of it, breaking the day up into 3 parts. Yeah, three's got this magical kind of, what we're talking about numbers so far in terms of its quantitative qualities, but there's also a qualitative part to number, and that's its dynamic qualities. So 3 has, we always say to children, have you learned your ABCs? If we said, have you learned your ABs or have you learned your ABCDs, it doesn't feel right.
No.
We need 3 points to enclose a space, a minimum of 3 points to make a triangle, to enclose an inside space and an outside space. You need 3 legs on a tripod to make it stand up. 2 don't work. If 2 people are fighting, it's usually a third principle, a dynamic mediator, a principle, somebody comes in to balance the 2 opposites, right? So there's a dynamic quality to number that we've never really been taught or ever considered. And so Freemasonry says, there's the 24-inch gauge, part to be spent in prayer to Almighty God, part to be spent in for labour and refreshment, part to be spent helping a friend or brother.
Right.
Okay, you can talk about the great part about that. It's good to honour the Creator, and maybe it's good to help your friends, and it's good to give yourself refreshment and labour and work and so on. But also we're breaking the day up, those 24 hours, into 3 parts. Is there another aspect to this that they're trying to convey?
Yeah, exactly. And now it's been, that is an extremely polar subject. No matter if someone believes that Freemasons are evil or something, you can't change their mind. No matter what you show them, they're not going to change their mind. You're like, well, you just haven't been brainwashed yet. Or, well, there's this guy and that guy in the government. He's a Freemason too. Like there's so many it's just a fraternity. Right. It doesn't mean that there aren't evil people in Freemasonry, but I've got evil people that work up at the gas station at my house. It doesn't mean Shell is evil,
Yeah, absolutely. And Freemasonry is, if let's say it was based on an evil foundation and there's an evil core at the middle of it, then a great way to cover it is to create this wonderfully benevolent, charitable organization that's full of ordinary people from builders to lawyers and judges who all help each other out. You have to leave religion at the door when you go in so that there's no conflict. You know, you donate lots of your money every year, as much as you can reasonably afford, to charity. It talks about all sorts of principles which are useful to you as a human being and to your relations with other people. Then it's a great cover, isn't it, for the evil core that's at the middle, to then talk about all the good stuff around the outside of it. Who knows, man? But at the end of the day, you know, as you say, you could just set up another society, right, and have the evil core somewhere else.
Yeah, and I've never used any of that stuff, any passes or anything that they teach, you know. Like, no. But I would say this. If I was driving down the road and I saw some guy give me a hail sign like I'm in trouble, well, then, I mean, come on. It's our duty to do that anyways. Do we really have to have the signs to help each other? But that's the thing, you know.
We know this is one of the things I've learned, is that we're wired more for cooperation than we are for conflict. It's clear to me that, you know, Noam Chomsky was asked in an interview, you know, a question was kind of put to him as a statement where they said, you know, people fighting, people go to war, people are greedy, people want this, you know, they'll do this, that and the other to each other to get what they want materially and so on. Isn't that just human nature? And Noam Chomsky said, well, no. You know, if you consider that more than 50% of GDP around the world is spent convincing us on advertising and media and culture, it's convincing us to be that way.
That's right.
Then we're manipulated to be that way. It's not human nature. We're actually more wired to cooperate with each other than we are to be in conflict with each other. It's just that someone's fucked with it.
You're right, my friend. No, but you're totally right, and that's okay. That's the perfect time to drop an F word, even if it's not suitable, because that's exactly what's wrong with everything that's going on. I've said that so many times. This guy's evil, that guy's evil. I've said this guy's crazy. Okay, well, when I go meet that guy and I sit down beside him and have a conversation with him, it's almost like they'll give you the shirt off your back. They're intelligent, this or that. And everybody seems to want to do good things and be good people. But you turn the TV on, Facebook, whatever you name it, and it's polarization galore.
Yeah, exactly. It's telling you that the world is screwed and you know, that it's all going to pot and all the rest of it. And you walk out in the street, every day I go out there, people smile, people want to help, people hold the door open for you, people are friendly. Love is all around us in so many ways, and yet the news and the media is constantly bashing at us to tell us, oh, you know, it's all on the pot.
Even like the shootings and stuff, you know, they focus on that, and you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson put a quote out. He said, you know, that's a horrific event, but consider the fact that all these other people are dying from all these other things in massive numbers, but they're not focusing you on that, right? They're focusing you on this for an agenda. It's always got some agenda behind it.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of austerity in this country over the last 10 years, you know. Our previous government borrowed a lot of money that it shouldn't have done, so this government came in and said, oh, I'm going to cut back, and they've cut back on public services, and they've cut back on so much. And there were estimates about tens of thousands of people that have died as a result of the austerity. And now and again it gets mentioned in the news, but I mean, it's been more effective than sending soldiers to Afghanistan where people are shooting at them for killing people. That's
right. Yep. See, and we learn all that from Freemasonry by looking at a checkerboard floor, you know. But that you would never even think of it if you didn't have those types of things opening your awareness up, which brings me back to the crop circle discussion. There's a question in the chat by Night Stalker. He says, what do you think, what does he think that the idea that maybe it's not some outside force manipulating the crops, but could it be the earth itself, or maybe Mother Gaia, or whatever you want to say, trying to show humanity that the earth or the planet is sentient and it's alive, maybe?
Absolutely. You know, I can quite resonate with that theory, but I have no evidence to suggest that 100% is the truth. But I really like it because I love nature, right? And we are an integral part of nature. And if all is mind, as Goswami put it, then why wouldn't it be, you know, communicating with us in some kind of unique way to try and shake us and wake us up out of our delirium that we're in, where we're destroying the whole place. Crocodile Dundee, he made a great statement, didn't he?
I love that movie. Yeah.
I love that movie too. I think he said human beings fighting with each other on the planet. It's like two fleas fighting over who owns the dog, right?
He had a bunch of those sayings.
In the sense of Gaia, that's how we are, right? But Gaia's not coming back and just like, well, it can, wipe us out with a flood or whatever. But if this is Gaia speaking to us, it's doing it in a very beautiful, benevolent way. That to try and make us realize that harmony is there. The whole world's built out of harmony. Harmonic numbers make music, make geometry. We can be harmonious with each other. I think it's squaring the circle. The ultimate symbol is that it's uniting heaven and earth, and that if we have the potential to be able to do that here, but various forces that we've discussed already seem to want to take us down a different road. But we can wake up from that at any second. So Night Stalker, it's a perfectly valid theory. Don't know for sure if that's the answer, but it's a good one.
Makes sense, right? And we've only got a few more minutes here left with you. We're going to go into our break. If you guys want to get any questions in, please do so. Now is the time. We'll be right back. More about crop circles with Gary King. Stay with us.
Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on the Fringe FM.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now, this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. They say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Galactic community, this is Suzanne Ross, host of Sci-Spy Radio, every Wednesday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific. Join me for this brand new show featuring a revolutionary new genre, Sci-Spy, merging science and spirituality to give us answers to the greatest mysteries of creation. Together, scientific discovery and spiritual revelation reveal the truth about who we are, where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going. Tune in to Sci-Spy Radio every Wednesday from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific and discover the truth for yourself at thefringe.fm.
You know, food was different 60 years ago. It was minimally processed, free of pesticides. It was nourishing and healthful for your body. Today, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and heavy processing have depleted the nutrition of our food supply, which takes a toll on our health and energy. It's harder than ever to get the right nutrition. That's what Life Change Tea is meant to counteract. Our specially blended, powerful herbal formulas can give you more energy without caffeine. It's a mild cleanse, a mild daily detox. A good detox can help revive and bring back the energy of your youth. GetTheTea.com is the website. It'll cleanse you from the inside out with this herbal proprietary formula. Go to GetTheTea.com. There's no fillers, no GMOs. It's organic. Not available in stores. You must go to their website, GetTheTea.com. And their supplements are a great way to maintain your health. Read the testimonials on the website. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335.
Well, I can't really be more excited about this, our first conversation about crop circles, and we've got more coming too. But tonight, our conversation is with Gary King, and it's been a really, really interesting and intellectually stimulating conversation as well. It makes me think about a lot of different things, and I'll talk about that too, and coming up the next part of the show. I wonder sometimes, Gary, if they're actually trying to show us things, not just kind of wake us up, but show us questions that we need answers to. And I'll give you an example. DJ in the chat has said, well, what about crop circles like this? And he drops a picture in the Fringe FM chat of, it's a circle and it's got triangles in it with other circles inside of it. But if you look at it and it's really been picked apart, it kind of looks like an electromagnetic motor of some type, some type of technology that maybe they're trying to show us. So do you believe that could be going on too? I mean, how prevalent is that, where it looks like this is not sacred geometry per se, but this is something else?
Well, it's been prevalent as a theory. There was a guy from Los Angeles, actually, who came here and made a documentary a bunch of years ago, who I think the documentary is on Netflix, or at least it was at one point. It starts off very well, but then he takes one particular crop circle and says, okay, I think this is a design for free energy. They're trying to tell us about how to create something for free energy. And he goes about, God knows where he gets the funding, but he spends an awful lot of money having materials made to produce this so-called device, which fails miserably at the end. It's a possibility, of course, because when you don't know the answers, there's always possibilities that could be there. But I think, if an advanced intelligence wanted to bring us designs for some technology of free, non-polluting energy that would save the planet and save us, why would it spend 40 years cryptically putting it in amongst pictures of dragonflies and animals and fish and geometry and abstract symbols and all the rest of it? Why don't it just come and tell us? Why don't they just land if they're UFOs and say, look, guys, you need this machine, right? It's going to sort you out. You don't use oil anymore, or just send us the plans, right? Why do it cryptically so that someone's got to come along and go, oh yeah, that's what this is. It's a new advanced perpetual energy motor. Well, it's been tried, and so far it's failed miserably. So it doesn't mean I'm not open to the fact that there could be something there, but I don't think so. Based on all the other dialogue that goes along with it, because we talk. Let me change it just slightly. We talked about the crop circles, right, and the symbols themselves and what they could mean. But there's also the landscape that these crop circles are placed within. That's context for the dialogue, and that is the fields of Wiltshire, right? What are the fields of Wiltshire? The fields of Wiltshire are the first place that farming began in this country. It's the Salisbury Plain is the first area that our ancestors, who were hunter-gatherers, decided to clear some trees and settle. And that marks a massive changeover for us as human beings, having spent 60,000 years marching around in a circle with the seasons. We finally said, let's stop here and grow some crops. And that changed everything. And then these ancestors built these ancient monuments like Stonehenge and Avebury and all these stone circles, which contain the same kinds of cryptic geometry that the crop circles contain. So the crop circles unite a mysterious changeover for human beings that mark to a point when we seem to get very, very interested in or showed that we were very, very advanced in aspects of geometry that's all around us, around the planets, and plotted the stars and plotted the sun and plotted the moon and so on and so forth. So this particular landscape forms part of the context of what I believe to be the communication, which is us. It's showing us our history all in one area. Now, it might be, as I say, I'm not closed off to the fact that there might be a mix amongst that. There might be some plans which we'll discover when we're ready that are giving us the advanced technology that we need to have free, clean and cheap energy. But at the moment, the way that humanity's set up, we probably wouldn't use it for that. Probably it would be buried and covered up like Tesla and a bunch of other stuff that's happened in the past. We're not ready for it, maybe. But I'm not closed off.
No, I mean, I totally see what you're saying. Because, look, if you look at artificial intelligence, right, some of the most brilliant minds in the world have told us that we're not ready as a society to handle something like this. You know, my next door neighbor regularly travels back and forth to the States. He's an advanced guy in artificial intelligence. He's a really, really smart guy. And we have these deep conversations about where we're at. And he doesn't tell me too much about where we're at. He's about 5 years ahead of all of us in terms of he knows what's coming, right? And he wants to go and live in a cave. He's really scared. He's really scared about the way it's going because he's convinced we're not going to use it for the good of humanity. I'm convinced that too. There's people like Jaron Lanier, even Elon Musk has said that stuff. Of course, then he goes on and just does his thing. But, you know, you got to be ready for it. And that's another thing too. If you're into spirituality, people talk about initiation and Kundalini and all this other stuff. Well, if you really look into those teachings as well, the body and mind has to be ready for that next level.
One of the things with Qigong practice I've done for a number of years is very common. I trained under Chinese teachers, and one of them was a Chinese doctor. Qigong psychosis is a recognized phenomenon amongst the Chinese.
Totally real.
If you open up your third eye before you're ready, you send energy up to your consciousness from your base chakra before you're ready, you go nuts.
Yeah.
Simple as that. It's got to be done in the right way. You've got to be working with a teacher who can recognize that energy, who can stick a needle in your arm and say, that needs to go there to rechannel that energy in this direction. Otherwise, you're going to go mad. It's like the best analogy he gave me was like wiring in your house. You have 1.5 millimeter cable to wire your lights. You have 6 millimeter cable for your oven, your cooker. If you try to send power, 6 millimeter, 30 amps of power through a 1.5 millimeter cable, you blow up. You blow it up. Well, it's the same with our meridians, right? Unless you build these things up gradually so that they can start to handle more and more current as an integrated holistic system, you fry. I've seen it. I've seen people get psychotic. They think they're Jesus. They think they're here to save humanity. It happens over and over again where people go for these advanced Kundalini courses and boom, they're gone.
Yeah, and a lot of them you never hear about either because they're in a padded room before you hear about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, stuffed up with drugs and all the rest of it, and they've got the usual label that's put onto them by the modern psychologist who says, they're suffering from a psychotic breakdown, they've got schizophrenia, they've got this and the other. But you look at the stuff that's been around with the Chinese for thousands of years, and find out that they've been looking at this stuff for years, and if you get involved in these kind of practices, something could trigger inside you, and the Western medicine's not going to look at you in that way. Just going to give you a bunch of pills.
So we should know this then. It's like the money machine is taken over to a point to where Now we've got technology doing that. We've got certain spiritual systems that are just trying to surpass everything. That does scare me, actually. I don't buy into fear and conspiracy too much, because I think certain things just need to go through their own their birthing process. But when we try to go outside natural law in a lot of ways and just skip over things, I think that's where we really mess things up.
Yeah. It's like you said earlier, people, we were talking about people want a one-word answer, right? Or sort of one-sentence answer because they don't want to do the work. Well, it's the same with this sort of stuff, right? They want to go on a weekends course where they get advanced teachings in, energy work, and they take on more than they can handle because they think that let's just jump a bunch of steps, right? Let's do it in the microwave way, where you get your dinner in a couple of minutes instead of taking time. And see, one of the things I love about Kung Fu, real Kung Fu, is that Kung Fu means mastery over time. Over time. It means that you've got to get up every day, you've got to do the boring jobs day in, day out, and build it up slowly. The whole is the antithesis is to do it in an advanced, quick way. And I think that's what helped me with the energies of the crop circles. When I walked into the crop circle, that first one I mentioned to you at the beginning of this segment, at the beginning of this interview, what touched me was the fact that I've felt chi before, right? I worked with chi since I was 16 years old. I got involved in the qigong thing. I'm 53 now. I've learned how to feel energy. And as soon as I walked in, it activated, the energy system in my body. I knew, wow, this is full of chi. There's something here. So I'm convinced that the two things are aligned, right? That the same system, the same energy grid that's in us, the meridian system, and the meridian system potentially around the earth with ley lines and all the rest of it is involved here. But the problem is that we as a species have not been doing this sort of stuff. We've been denied it. It's been ridiculed as New Age rubbish. And there's a ton of gurus out there, right, who've learned something and then set themselves up in business and a website and take you on an advanced course for $3,000 a week. And to be honest, they don't know what they're doing. And I've seen a lot of people get damaged as a result of that.
Yeah, that's kind of stuff that's irreversible. And I think that's why your friend is hiding in a cave or wants to, because if it comes to pass, this isn't reversible,
It's not reversible, exactly. And this is why it's like I've done one crop circle tour this year. It was with 4 Chinese women who live in Malaysia, and they're into the sort of New Age stuff, and they've read some books out there, and kept going on about all we need is unconditional love. Well, yeah, sure we do, right? But I'm sick of hearing that in some respects because there's no real practicals. We just all love each other. You need some sort of practical steps for how we go about these things. I've lost my thread now.
Well, you've got to. Well, yeah, because that's the love and light syndrome, I call it, because you don't deal with your shadow self. You don't deal with the animal.
Right. Let's not talk about negativity. If we don't talk about negativity, then everything's going to be wonderful. No, it's not. And so we talked about the Buddha, right? 2,500 years ago, Buddha, Lao Tzu and a bunch of other people come along. 500 years later, Jesus comes along, and they all come up with ideas and systems about who we are, what our place on Earth is, and solutions to how we were going to solve problems, because humanity was in a crisis at that time, right? And so, people rose to the top, namely the Buddha and stuff, with ideas about what we could do about it. Well, those things are mixed in with the New Age now, but they don't address the problems of today. We didn't have nuclear power, electricity, machine guns, laser-guided satellite weapons. We didn't have all those things there. We didn't have environmental destruction that we were on the brink of in 2,500 years ago. So, some meditation's going to help, but it's not going to solve the problems of today.
Yeah, that's totally right. Why that isn't taught in technology, though, is I'll never know. And I think maybe I have this feeling, I can't prove it, and I'm sure a lot of people do too, that we've always been guided by things like crop circles and sacred geometry and fundamental things that make us become more aware. But shouldn't that show us that we need to slow down and try to understand these things first before we start trying to smash particles together, things like that. That's all. I'm not saying these guys aren't smart that are doing it. It's just we don't know what we're messing with. And now we're getting to where we're just smashing stuff together, creating artificial intelligence because we want the answers so bad. And it's like maybe we should, like you said earlier, live inside the mystery a little and let things develop as they should.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think once you're on a roller coaster, it's going to it's kind of set to run, right? And curiosity, one of the things I love about humanity is also potentially our undoing, right? Because we open Pandora's box and then you can't shut the lid. And we all heard about the fact that when they did the experiments at CERN, that they're going to create this particle, clash these particles together to create a mini black hole, and we're all going to be doomed. But here we all still are. Lots of fear and all the rest of it bounces around.
Right.
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about where we could go with technology. I'm more worried about how humans will use it. Certain human beings will use it to control the rest of us, right? And that seems to be the road it's going down in so many ways. The world's in such a state, right? We need to put a chip in everybody so that we can monitor what you're up to and what you're doing. And those kinds of things have always worried me. And we've tended over these years now to build a system where we're very keen to run before we can walk, whether that's New Age practices with Qigong or Kundalini, or whether it's building an artificial intelligence. We want to run before we can walk, and it could be our undoing. It could be our saving. I don't know at this stage.
I've even seen that with DMT once, and I was watching this video where they gave this woman, I think it was 5-MeO DMT. First time she's ever done it, just give her the full blast breakthrough experience. And she flips over on her belly and starts screaming in terror. And there's nobody can do anything. All they can do is just, I hope she makes it through it, And I'm feeling so sorry for this woman. It's like they want that spiritual understanding experience so bad. They're willing to go all the way out there. And this guy who's not a shaman by no means is giving her the biggest dose possible,
Oh God, isn't the New Age? I mean, right since Castaneda, right since the 60s. I mentioned the American guy from Iowa that took me to the crop circles for the first time when he was in UCLA in the 60s when Castaneda, his book, got published. And he told me that it was published by UCLA Press, right, Castaneda. There was a bunch of brand new anthropology freshmen who turned up for their first day in university, right, all keen to find out about culture in the world. And the lecturer held up this book, right, Castaneda's Teachings of Don Juan, published by UCLA, supposedly as a PhD thesis by Castaneda. They all took it off and read it. Half the class left university after a week and went straight down to Mexico looking for Don Juan, right? Who wasn't. Yeah, and there just happened to be a bunch of Mexican guys sitting there with a bag full of peyote ready to feed them and tell them the secrets to the universe. And that's been going on now for 50 or 60 years, right? Where you've got shamans who, $3,000, $4,000, £5,000 come to the ayahuasca ceremony here. We've got ayahuasca shamans going all around the place. Just drink this thing and you're going to be enlightened, right? You speak to yoga teachers. If you're going to learn to bend your leg around the back of your head, you're going to get enlightened. And then they do get that flexible and they realize that they don't get enlightened.
Yeah, I talked to Dick Kahn on here too, and he's had like 600 different experiences. I'm thinking 600, and some of his stories are fascinating. But he went into this other story about how he couldn't breathe and he thought he was going to die, and he keeps seeing these other things. I'm like, okay, well, I have a lot of respect for anybody that's willing to go down that road because they're giving us answers. Yeah. However, after 600 something times, 1,100, 1,200, you're still not getting the answers you want. You're not getting any greater experiences. Maybe we need to back up a bit,
Right, exactly. I think that's a very fair assessment, Joe. Really, really. It's just trying to buy enlightenment. And there's plenty of people out there that are going to peddle it to you.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like the UFO community's kind of moved away from crop circles, and I wish they would come back in a bigger way and just say, look, let's just slow down for a minute. Yeah, we might be getting disclosure a little bit from the military and stuff, and that's cool, but let's slow down and look at maybe what they're trying to show us if this is what's going on.
Yeah, well, it's like Jaime Maussan in Mexico, right? I worked with him for a bunch of years. He's a good friend. in many ways, right? But we have arguments, right? We differ on a lot of our where we fundamentally see this situation.
Right.
The thing is, as a journalist, he in 1990, someone filmed when the eclipse happened. Someone filmed some ball of light hanging over Mexico City, and then a bunch of people sent him footage. Loads and loads of people sent him footage because he was the guy on 60 Minutes. And then he became the sort of foremost UFO researcher, right? He built his own TV company, and he's got people he employs, editors and film camera crews and all the rest of it. And he needs to pay the bills, right? So every week the show says, look, here's a light in the sky. This must mean that we're being visited. And it's just constantly trying to get that one piece of evidence that says, finally, here's the evidence that proves it all, and I'm the one who got it. Well, I don't think that's what it's all about, right? He's been doing it for 30 years. He's been ridiculed and rubbished in so many ways, some of it where he's been stupid and naive by his own admission, right? And he's followed evidence and put stuff forward that he shouldn't have done because he was so keen to make a TV show, right? It puts you in a vulnerable position, particularly if you're making a living off of it. You need the next show, right? So that's why I've never really thrown a book out there or had a website or done all these things because, as I said to you earlier, I work part-time as a chef. I run a little photography business. I keep my feet on it. I was a single parent to 3 children. I put through school and university. Regular guy. I don't want to be out there justifying my existence on trying to prove to the world that UFOs
but you know what, Gary, I say this to a lot of people, and you're another one too that I would definitely listen to a podcast or something, even if you just got questions, listen to your stories, your experiences, that kind of thing. And if you look at the way things are moving, we are definitely moving into the age. More people want to know the truth. They're tired of being sold BS, and we're definitely moving into the age of the storyteller and the guy that will ask, or girl will ask the right questions. And I think that's what you're doing. And I think we need more of that.
Right. So it's like teaching, right? I'm very interested in how we get, how we get educated, how we form our minds, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful if when you went to school, and you can think about this in terms of politicians as well, right? They all stand up there and say, we got the answers, right? Now you listen to us, you fill in, you learn all this, what we're going to tell you, and then we'll give you a test and see if you've remembered it, and then we'll let you know if you're good enough or not. Well, wouldn't it be lovely if a politician stood up and said, do you know what? We haven't got any answers. We've got a couple of ideas. We're thinking maybe we should go this way. What do you think? What are your ideas about this? Well, I think the crop circles have been saying that to us for years. They're out there in the middle of nowhere. It's entirely our choice whether or not we engage them. We can just go about our lives, I see people driving past the roads with crop circles in them every day. But if you stop and you walk in and you go, wow, what's this? And you scratch your head, it's almost as if there's another invisible party saying, what do you think about this? How do you respond to this?
Right.
What are your ideas about this? Without any definitive answers. Well, I think, Joe, that the world would be a much better place if we went about it with less certainty and more exploration and curiosity and working together to try and find some answers that would help us all.
Yeah, because there is another theory that certain spiritualists have that maybe we're inside of something that doesn't really know what it is, and it's living vicariously through us, and we're communicating back with it, right? So,
right. Well, I'm a big proponent of the anthropic principle, right? There's 4 stages to the anthropic principle. The first is that life is so finely tuned to produce life. The universe is so finely tuned. It's like if you wind back 13.5 billion years ago to the Big Bang, you explode. You have this big explosion. Space and time gets created kind of almost immediately. The universe expands, and then you get this little tiny corner of the solar system where we are that's all sort of harmonic. So many coincidences that the moon just happens to be the right size and the right relative distance from the sun that you get these wonderful eclipses so that we can look up and go, wow. And there we are scratching our heads, right? But the third stage, the participatory anthropic principle, which leaves most scientists behind, says that there's a paradox in time, that we are here co-participating in the creation of reality. That if we weren't here to witness it, to look at the stars that are there in the past, to look back at the potential creation of the universe, that it wouldn't exist in the first place. And that there's this kind of loop that we are engaged in taking it forward. So that means, if that's true, that there aren't any real answers and that we can take it wherever we want it.
That's right. Yeah. That is, man, yeah, that is trippy to think about, right? What if we were the ones that were making it all up as we go the whole time?
Yeah. Yeah, the whole time.
And that's kind of scary. Especially you go back to your buddy.
50 years ago, right, we were looking at Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek, right? And you've got these little devices that people could talk to each other with, over the system where they're looking at each other's faces. And so how much as science fiction, as ideas that have come from the imaginary realm, how much of us human beings gone, I'm going to make one of those. And now they're coming, become reality. Artificial intelligence, right? Jean-Luc Picard spoke to computer, tell me about blah, blah, blah. Well, you got Alexa and all these other things that we create. It's nowhere near what that is. But look how the imagination has led the process of discovery.
Yeah, that's true. Even teleportation, you would think, that's insane. They can't do that. Well, no, they're teleporting particles right now.
Yes, and the biggest amount of money that's being spent at the moment by the likes of Google and Silicon Valley is on immortality, trying to come up with genetics to make humans live. Certainly.
What do you think about that?
That's where most of the money that's going, the richest people in the world are spending all their money on research to make immortality real, to make us Homo Deus, right? Gods on earth. They're talking about nanotechnology to repair cells, genetics to sort out the fact that you've got inherited stuff, and drugs and various pills and therapies that will keep us alive longer. That's where all the money's going at the moment.
What do you think about that, though? Really?
I think it's nuts. I think it's nuts. I think one of the profound things about a circle, a simple, humble circle, and that most people, again, teachers didn't really understand or explain very well what pi was, right? They just said, look, it's 3.14, 22/7, just accept it. And none of us got it, right? But it took me until I really, really sat with it for a long while when I realized that the diameter of a circle, that one straight line that goes from one side of a circle to another, is one side of a square. And that diameter is finite. That one line has 2 points. One dimension is one finite thing. It has a beginning and an end. And its relationship, that's the key word that the teachers never really told us. Its relationship to the circumference is finite to infinite. And infinite is beyond number. It's, it doesn't matter how high we can count, we can always add another one on. So it's nothing to do with transcends number. That's why circles are pi is not an irrational number. It's transcendental number. And right there with the diameter, we live a finite life. We get up and ponder about it on a daily basis. But right there in a circle is a relationship between something which is finite and something which is infinite. And the contemplation of that mystery of our place in the universe, to me, is the most profound thing. And anyone that wants to try and create a human being that's infinite, I think is going against the laws of nature.
You know what's funny, too, is in alchemy, that what you just talked about, that's the symbol of salt.
Is it?
You've got mercury. Yeah, I was just thinking about that because in alchemy, they got the three big ones is, mercury, sulfur, and salt, right? The circle with the diameter, the line going through it is the symbol of salt. It's one of the three parts of alchemy, actually.
Right.
So you're already tapped into something, man. These things that, we could talk about, and I'm sure some people maybe wanted us to get controversial and talk about if crop circles are a hoax or this or that. Yeah. But I did not want to really have a discussion about that. I wanted to look into its base meanings, and that's exactly what we talked about. And I feel like we're being guided by something, whether it's consciousness or whether we're guiding ourselves. And that's what I think we should be listening to more and more, whatever that is.
I'm really refreshed, Joe, that you've switched the conversation from 95% of all the other interviews I've ever done, where people just want to talk about, well, it's a bunch of guys with boards, isn't it? Yeah, we can talk about that, but it's boring. The stuff we've been talking about, I think, opens up a door for us to be more curious, for us to be human again, and say, look, we don't have all the answers, and but this is really interesting, and that's where I want to be.
Well, thanks for coming on the program, and we'll have to do it again. And you know what? I think I could speak for a lot of people. I hope you do write a book or something, man. I hope you do come out with something.
I've written it. It's called A Language Older Than Words.
Nice.
And I've just got to go through and edit it and sift out the stuff but I'm going to Brazil next week. I'm going to be there for a couple of weeks. I'm doing a lecture, and then I'm going to take a holiday, do some photography, and then when I get back, my plan is from between then and Christmas to really get it nailed down and finalize it so I can do something and release it in the next year.
Well, there you go then. See, I can't wait to read it. I hope so. You're just about to finish it then. You're getting close. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, I've pretty much written it. It's all laid out. The photographs are in. I've got photographs from people. I've pretty much written it, but I did it a year or so ago, and then I kind of shelved it. Thought, right, I need to just think about all the things that I want to say and see if there's any more to add. And actually, last Friday, I filmed a lecture of Michael Glickman was giving a series of lectures here in Wiltshire, my architect friend I told you about. And last Friday, he did a lecture on the squaring of the circle. And at the end of the lecture, I went, "That's it. I've got to publish the book now."
God, I can't wait to read it, man. I really can't. And thanks again for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Us late nighters over here. I hope the coffee's working, and I hope you can come back on the show, especially when the book launches. Even if it don't launch, man, I'd love to have you back and have another discussion.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Joe. It's been a great time talking to you.
You too, as well. All right, guys, I'm gonna have some final thoughts about this, some of the revelations I've had during this discussion, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Did you know that qualified patients can access medical cannabis in all 50 states? CannaSense is a medical cannabis collective that helps patients in all 50 states gain access to cannabis medication. CannaSense does this with a streamlined process and strict compliance with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. It is important for each patient to understand the legalities involved, the costs, and the benefits of cannabis medication. Through truth, legalization, and education, the medical benefits of cannabis will supplant recreational perceptions, and the real vision for change will be realized. Let the people and their personal doctors take control of their medical cannabis decisions before the greed of big business takes over. The tipping point for change is today, and CannaSense is ready to lead the charge and enable legal access for all qualified patients to medical cannabis through its proven system. For more information, go to thefringe.fm/care or click the banner on the website today.
Ahoy there. Gigi here from Shift Happens. Do you like to boogie down to topics such as ufology, the occult, and the mysteries behind our reality? Well, I invite you to join us every Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, that's 10 p.m. Eastern, as we like to punch that curiosity button and tickle that fancy. We tickle that fancy, but yeah, I don't know if that's the right analogy, but there's certainly a lot of tickling going on over here at Shift Happens.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
AncientLifeOil.com. For your CBD needs, just remember, AncientLifeOil.com. What does it do for the body, you ask? I can't say due to the people in the suits that run the industry. Big Pharma's all over CBD because of its well, you know what I mean. Research the benefits of CBD on Google and come back to AncientLifeOil.com and purchase your CBD today. non-GMO, and all organic. You don't want to be using a petroleum product. You want to be using the cleanest CBD product on the market, ancientlifeoil.com. We even have CBD for your pet. Help your pet's discomfort. Help your discomfort. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Newly reduced prices to pass off the savings to the most important person, you. ancientlifeoil.com. And one more thing, we have topicals too. So if you have joint pain and some different issues that are going on in your body, you might want to use a topical. Think about it. ancientlifeoil.com.
Alex Exum.
This is Alex Exum of the Exum Experience in Live Talk, where we discuss current events, society, and culture. My shows are based in actuality, actual existence, contrasted with what was intended, expected, or believed. You can listen to me live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on KTLK, The Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on The Fringe FM.
You are listening to the Fringe FM, and I'm Michael Deacon reminding you can find my show right here on the Fringe FM every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, or by going to michaeldeacon.com. The choice is yours.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada.
Yeah, and there's also a direct line, too, that you can call, which is 501-424-5130. I had a few points that I jotted down. I think that when he was talking about these things, it's really cool to have somebody that can ask the right questions. And that's, again, what this show is all about, asking the right questions so that we can get to the right answers, no matter what it takes, and no matter how long it takes, because sometimes you're just not going to know. And a lot of people in the chat and through email and stuff say there's so many good theories that make a lot of sense about where these things are coming from, these fundamental principles of geometry. Could it be? Could it be Gaia? Could it be aliens trying to help us move along, or some other race or something that's trying to help us wake up? Well, what I can say with beyond the shadow of a doubt is that is happening. I can say that I can't prove it on paper. All I know is that something has been guiding us, and it's been guiding us through means that tap into our subconscious. And these shapes, these symbols, they tap into our subconscious, and that part of you, your subconscious, is pretty much running the show. So it is kind of, if you think about it, like a brainwashing, because it's running the show behind the scenes, but which makes you think about brainwashing and manipulation, things like that, or the ethics of it. But if it makes you more aware, if it grows you as a species, if it makes your life better, I don't see how it could hurt. He brought up the circle or square in the circle earlier, and I thought the first thing that came to mind was, hell, we were just talking about this the other night. We were talking about with David Matheson, and he was discussing the stars, and I had brought up that band, A Perfect Circle. Now, Maynard James Keenan and those guys, they're totally into those types of things, and so they didn't just put all that symbolism in that music for no reason whatsoever. They put it there, I believe, for those that understood these types of things to speak to us. Cool. I'm glad somebody called, because I don't want to talk to myself here. See, 940 area code. Who are we speaking with?
This is Wolf Dog.
Wolf Dog.
Or is it Dog Wolf? Yeah, Dog Wolf.
Yeah, what's up,
I got
man?
it backwards, yeah.
What's on your
Listen,
mind?
man. Well, first off, can I just tell you how honored it is to speak to you? I know, for me, listening to you as much as I do, I just recently started to listen to your podcast, so I've been able to binge a lot of episodes in a row, and to hear kind of what's been going on and how you've developed the podcast over, I'm listening to years and the span.
Oh, you're going back to the stuff when I was stuttering all the time, aren't you? Yeah, I remember.
I was I just recently listened to the one with John Anthony West. That's the earliest one on the Spotify.
You know, that one, I'm so embarrassed of that show, even though I had such a good conversation with him. I was so nervous when he was there. He put me on Skype, and I hate being on Skype, but I was so nervous. I had my Zippo lighter, and I was flicking it back and forth, and you could hear it just clink, clink, and I had to take all that out and put it. So if you watch it on YouTube, you'll hear the lighter, but if you listen to it on regular podcasting, I tried to go back and knock all that stuff out, but that's how green I was then. I'm still a little green now, but man, that's really cool that you went back and listened to all those shows. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's crazy because, you talk about synchronicity a lot, and sometimes I listen to a show and I'll pick another just so at random, or I'll try to find one that I'm interested in. And you'll mention other shows. Like tonight, you had mentioned the DMT show. I don't know how far back that is, but I just listened to the DMT episode that you had with that guy who had the tome, who wrote a 500-page book.
Yeah, Dick Kahn. Yeah.
On it. Yeah, and so I listened to that on the way back from work. And it was a long drive, so I got to listen to the whole episode. So I got home and wasn't ready to go to sleep, so I jumped on here, and you had just mentioned it again about his experiences with DMT. And the reason that I looked into it was because I've also had experiences with DMT, so I was like, okay, well, let me hear what this guy has to say and see if it, coincides with what I felt.
Well, what have you felt? I mean, is there something that I've never done it? And what I get from all the guests that I've talked to and other people I've talked to is that the reason why they keep going back to it, I think, is kind of like what the guest was talking about. They know there's something. They know there's something cosmic there. They know there's some type of truth that they keep tapping into, and they want to go back and get there again. What do you think?
Okay, well, somebody who was super smart said it better than I could. He said that psychedelics are like getting your foot in the door, and you get a chance to peek to see what's in it. Well, once you know what's there, then you got to take it upon yourself to do the hard work to get there. You can't just rely on that to be your only method of interacting with that level of spirituality, because you really do yourself a disservice if that's the only way you can get there. And it's not that it's not the same place or anything like that. It's more the level of control you have. It's the difference of being a passenger and in the driver's seat. And if you want to be in the driver's seat, well, then you do have to do all that spiritual work so that when you walk into that door freely on your own accord and you can leave when you feel like it, it's a different experience. And with DMT, that's like strapping yourself into a rocket ship and just hoping for the best. And the reason people do go back so often is because it's a really good time.
Right.
It's not so much a search for spirituality. I mean, man, it's fun. You discover things about yourself. Sometimes it scares you. Sometimes it enthralls you. It can be emotional, and, we're obsessed with entertainment. And I think that just is a testament to how much we like to be entertained. At a certain point, you do have to do the work to be spiritual. I mean, you just have to. But if you're smoking DMT 600 times in 2 years, I mean, I think you just like DMT.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Dick is he didn't pretend to be. I never heard him pretend to be like this super spiritual guy. You could definitely tell that he was having fun with it. But those couple of times he talked about where he couldn't breathe, he said, make no doubt about it, there's some real scary things that can happen. He thought he was going to die. It made me think, man, that to me is kind of like another Aleister Crowley figure, or somebody that's willing to go to some other depths to find out about something. And sure, we're all grateful that there's people that do that, but I'm not one of those people. I'd rather kind of, like you say, round out my nature, work my way up to it. And it would be cool, actually, to be able to access this stuff at will without, going up in the rocket ship, like you say.
Well, it would be cool to skydive every day, but I'm not going to do that either. And there's just some people who are down with that,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's pretty good points, man. Really good points. Listen, thanks again for listening to my shows. That means a lot. It really does. I figured once a certain point, you get so far back, you're like, okay, yeah, this is starting to get a little mundane. But that's really cool that you've done that.
Well, I would say that for me, I don't listen to the shows in a sequential order necessarily because I'm looking to see what's next. I mean, a lot of it is pertaining to, I think maybe a lot of people feel this way. You cover topics that we might be interested in. I mean, you're not covering the topics I'm interested in right now or
Sure.
every other day, but you might have like, hey, let me look back. 4 months ago, they did a thing on tarot. Well, let me look into it. And I listen to it, and that might lead me to another topic. Now I'm scrolling around doing searches, trying to look for the next topic that is relevant to whatever. I mean, you know how easy it is for your mind just to flitter from one interesting occult or esoteric topic to the other. I mean, You can start at point A and then end up, 15 tabs of Wikipedia in and not know where you started to begin with.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The first time I got the Golden Dawn book, like the really thick one, I opened that one up, and it's got everything in it, talismans, tarot, you name it, tattwa, astrology, the Hebrew language. And I'm like, how am I going to focus? Because I want to read all this. It made me go nuts just looking into it. But I'm glad, man. I'm glad we're in a day and age where people can do that and listen to other shows too, man. There's so many good podcasters and shows out there now. We're really kind of spoiled. And I'm doing live radio, so I don't have to. Of course, I just like the live. I want to know that's happening right now, so I know you're not editing something that's really on your mind and you're afraid that someone's going to think you said that. I like the live stuff too, and I'm glad you're here hanging out with us.
Well, that's risky, right? Like, a lot of people wouldn't feel that way. The way that you feel kind of about, like, these extreme psychonauts who are willing to, like, just dive into it. I mean, how many people have the courage just to lay out their beliefs that, a lot of the topics with metaphysics and the esoteric schools are difficult to talk to, and especially, I don't know, you're aware of this because you're in Arkansas. I'm in Texas, so we can relate to some extent, but a lot of people aren't open to this kind of thing in regular dialogue. And there's a sense of hesitation and embarrassment to even address it. So we see communities where people have more courage than we do, and we exhaust our loved ones with this endless rhetoric that just doesn't really seem to change. But for you to be out there and to do that, in a public setting, that to me is like, oh, I would never do that. Like, I would do DMT in a heartbeat, but I wouldn't get on the radio and just pour out like, sensitive, raw information and just go with it. That's way more, I guess,
revealing.
I don't know. That seems more difficult to me between the two, Yeah, for sure.
Well,
more revealing, and then also personally more difficult.
Yeah. that comes with, I can tell you straight off, and I don't think I've ever talked about this, not to a bad extent, but it comes with its losses too. You know, I've had a lot of friends and family that used to be in my everyday life that just kind of look at me like they're, you know, you can tell, hey Joe, how you doing? There's the weirdo again. Nice to see you, brother. And that's it, you know. But I'm willing to sacrifice.
Thank God my wife is deaf.
You know, so, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said, thank God my wife is deaf. She just tunes me out. So she doesn't know how, crazy I can get into these subjects. I'll just find something fascinating and I'm going to tell her about it, you know, and she just can't hear very well. So it doesn't matter really what I say. And it's been a saving grace, I think. Really? That's an interesting situation. Yeah, man, I'm glad. I'd like to talk to you more about that. You should call in sometime on open lines night. And then Friday nights we do open lines, and I try to get everybody to kind of blow off some steam and tell me what they think, because the guru thing, I'm not saying that there's not any cool stuff to that. Obviously, yeah, I mean, you get smart people on here like Robert Schock and John Anthony West, and it's great. But some of the times that people have called in and some of the stuff like your share and that others share, I find just as much, if not more, value in and what's going on with us, because we're all kind of going through this birthing process of understanding. And even the smartest chaps that have been on here that got 9 million degrees are still asking the same questions you are. It's still the one fundamental thing we all want to know the answers to, you know. But I got to roll this thing out of here, though, man. Thanks for calling. I hear you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And give me your feedback anytime. Like, email me at producer@thefringe.fm or contact@lightingthevoid.com. Loving the feedback, too. Even if it's bad, I want to hear about it. What could I do better? What do you like? That stuff I really like. And I guess my final thought for the night would be on these fundamental principles. I can now start to see why so many people come to me about magic and the occult and esoteric, because I keep wrapping back around to that subject. And even, you know, when we do a show on crop circles, it seems like that I'm wrapping back around to that subject again, because some of these sacred geometrical symbols have been used by Renaissance magicians and even shamans and natives since the beginning of time. And I did not, and this is what I was going to say before we get out of here too, I did not start having out-of-body experiences or any type of really paranormal crazy activity until I started drawing that circle around myself. And that's all I'll say about that. And not doing any extravagant rituals or anything, just making a little energetic space and claiming it for myself. And the next thing I know, I'm having these experiences and launch states, and it was insane. And it made me step back and go, okay, maybe I need to do more than just read these books and do what these books say. Maybe I need to take this even slower and really start looking into things like the caller was talking about, like the tarot and where all this stuff comes from. Historically, who are the main players? And don't just dive into any system because you want to or you want to learn it so bad. Sometimes we need to slow down and let all of these energies and all of these things that we're trying to work out. In Freemasonry, it's called square in the circle, like our guest talked about. Sometimes it's better to let them develop the way they're supposed to. So when it comes time for us to have that big transcendental experience, or even maybe when we die, we can do it consciously and energetically the way that we want to. Could be what this is all about, so we don't forget anymore. But either way, we're going to keep asking questions and keep shining some light on the void until we figure it out. What I'm going to try to do tonight, because the server isn't back up, is play what Ryan Gable show through here. And if you're listening on here, you're going to be able to hear that too. The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable's coming up next. Also, don't forget that this show was produced by the Fringe FM and me. Can't be copied without written permission. Music was by Chronox and Bundy. Special shout out to Pacho, Don, Dennis, Eric, and Jeremy. And of course, my undisclosed helper in the background. You know who you are. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night.
And opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.